Hello, my friend. Big Mark back here, talking to you from the secrets behind the red doors again. My dear friend Kevin, my buddy, he's not here today. Sorry, couldn't make it. He'll be back in the next show, but schedules pursuing. I want to get your shows out there. Two things. Thanks for subscribing and follow and watching my videos. Keep it up. Send it to your friends. More big stuff coming. I promise you that. You're gonna have that special I promised you about. We'll put it together. It'll take some time, but it's gonna be something you guys never seen before. I promise you that. So you'll find out more every week. As soon as I get an update, if I get an update even when I'm not taping this, I'll throw a little quickie up there, tell you how we're doing. But I want you to enjoy the show. Remember, we're only telling the truth here about the Bergin. So for all my guys out there that love the show, they send me questions and stuff like that about other people. I try to stay inside the Bergin in the 80s and early 90s. That's where this show's focused out of. But you'll get all the stories. I got years of it. I was talking about a friend of mine the other day about a story, an old story about on 101st Avenue. In the wintertime, a lot of times at night, John used to like going by his brother Richie's club, our friends around the corner. And it'd be winter and, snow be out there. They had the fireplace, the fireplace where you put the Christmas tree up. Remember that? So, and we go down to Scombotti's. If guys remember Scombotti's, but a grocery store down the block. We buy bags of fresh chestnuts and baked potatoes, and we put them in tin foil. And we cooked them on the fireplace on the coals while the guys are pouring cocktails, we're drinking. The jukebox is playing. Either jukebox is playing Jimmy Roselli or some Italian singers. And it was a very unique time. And in them winters, when it was snow on the ground, sometimes we got hit with a blizzard. One time we got hit with a blizzard, there had to be 22, 24 inches. And I'm telling you, nobody could drive. The streets weren't plowed yet. And back then, everybody knows, lived in Queens or Brooklyn. Queens is one of the late ones that get plowed all the time. So we're stuck overnight. So it's an all-nighter now, guys playing cards, drinking. And you got to understand something for a guy like me from the neighborhood. This was something special. There was 20, 30 guys showing up with food, guys trucking from their house with gallons of wine. And we're hanging out all night and until the sun came out, till the plows finally came. This was an event. And you sat there with John, Pete, same time little Jackie, Jimmy Irish was there, myself, guys like Billy or Tommy, or Sonny, guys were there all night. I mean, there was some guys that came from other neighborhoods that got stuck there. So it was a hangout special. And the stories, you know what the stories were about? Stories about gambling, horse betting, card games, or stories from 25 years ago when John was 20. And guys would tell stories about this guy from 20 years ago. And basically, the stories I'm telling you now is a carbon of that. I'm telling you stories from the 80s and 90s that I heard them talk about, that I want. So you want the true nuts and bolts about that life? Listen, a lot of them guys didn't earn money, didn't know how. A lot of guys were broke. A lot of guys were degenerate gamblers. Didn't make them bad guys. I mean, some guys you had to watch, $20 here, $40 here, anything to get a dollar. But mostly they were all hustlers. So what guys are presenting to you, this guy did this for a living, we never questioned it. It isn't like we walked up, John, how do you make your money? You didn't care. You like being around them. You like getting involved. He put you to work, or you worked a card game, or you put his horse bets in, or eventually worked in a bookie joint. And back then, those were nothing. They were absolutely nothing. I mean, a guy can get arrested and get $100 desk appearance ticket. It wasn't a big deal. So you got to understand, for a young guy like myself and other guys like myself, you get infatuated because you think, wow, this is real simple. So in that night with the baked potatoes and the chestnuts in the fireplace. So Johnny's sitting there and he goes, you know what? Let's play a game. I never played it. I know the Italian guys, the real Italian guys, from Italy, the bricklayers, the workers that hung out there, played a lot. There was a game called Boss and Underboss. I said, really? Yeah, boss. So it was a drink. They used to play with Italian cards. And they used to play. It was like a game of Scoop, and whoever won, one guy would win and pick, and the cards would come out. I never played it, but you got included in the game. And whoever won had a boss and underboss, and the boss would order drinks. Now, if you had 6 guys, right, he'd order whatever drink. Oh, give me 2 cognac, 2 vodkas, a beer, just random, whatever he wanted to drink. And he would hand them out. Okay, and I would tell them, I want Pete to drink this. And the boys, no, I don't want Pete. So the idea was to get a drink. In that game, in that round, if you got shut out, if you were the only guy to get a drink, it was an embarrassment. It was like a fun way of disrespect you. No drink for you. You felt like a real piece of crap. You know what I mean? But that game, watch these guys play. There'd be 8, 10 guys. This went on all night, and they'd laugh and they'd have drinks, and the kind of drinking. The drunkenness wasn't drunk and violent and crazy. It was more like a lot of laughter, a lot of eating food. So as long as they kept on eating, they didn't get too drunk. But that was a classic game that I picked up. And John loved playing that. Loved playing Boston. They call it Boston Underboss. They had another game, Liar's Brisk. Everybody knows what brisk is, an Italian game. It was Liar's Brisk. You lie about what you had in your hand. These were, and Johnny, even after he'd go down to the city, go to Ravenite, whoever went with him, whoever drove him, if it was Nunzi, if it was, Jackie, it was Joe, whoever drove him now, Bobby Borriello, he'd come back that night after dinner and he'd charge up a game with everybody in the club. That's when I talk about a guy's personality and a guy who really is, or guys like that, or even Gene or Joey Scopo, another guy. These were great guys personally. Agree. I'm judging them who they were, their character and who they were, and all tough guys, not phonies. And they believed in something, and I honor them for that. But these are some of the funny stories. Oh, there was times of betting horses. Well, there's a story, true story, a long time ago. Johnny bet a game. It's a college football game. I think he got 10 dimes on a game. Now, 10 dimes back then was 10 grand. I put his bets in with Philly Broadway or this guy Dominic, not Skinny Dom, another guy Dominic, different bookies. So he bets the game. He's up at halftime, 28-0, and he's laying 2 points. The game is a home run. Notre Dame. He got Notre Dame. In the second half, I think the running back, I don't know what year it was, Anthony Davis, or one of the running back and a kick returner, they scored 5 unanswered touchdowns. And they end up winning the game 41-28. No, they never scored again. Only John that could happen to, winning 28-0. So you got to understand, when he came in from out of his office into the club, you believe I just lost this game? I was winning 28-0. I can't believe I lost the game. And you have to, but he's saying it, and he's not screaming mad, like violent. He's almost got like this smirk on him, like he expected something bad, that gambling happened to him. And we sit there, really, and you sympathize with him. Wow, it's unbelievable. Never heard of something. Yeah, telling me never heard of something. I need you to tell me you've never heard of something. What happened to me? If it could happen to me, it happened right now. That was a big game for me. But John would take that story and tell everybody about it. I think he got more joy out of telling how he lost and that he lost. And then if he would have won the game and a blowout, would have been boring. The telling the story and how he lost was part of John's personality. And you understand it. He explained it with such, charisma and personality. You went along for the ride. You did. It was, and that's very infectious to guys. So when we talk to people, and he should tell us, guys can throw as many punches as you want, but this thing between your legs, it's not as good as what's up here. If you don't have what's up here in your head, you're not going to get very far. He says, you got to use your brain for a lot of things. He says, a lot of guys don't. I mean, we're not all perfect, but that was a story. He just loved telling about his losses. But, that's the nuts and bolts that these guys don't understand. I know you fans love that, and you're going to hear a lot more of it. I mean, the food, eating. Here's a dish. You want a favorite dish? I walk into the club one day, and little Jackie's got a can of campanata. Now, campanata is a Sicilian specialty. It's an appetizer made with eggplant, capers, celery, you know what I mean, and green olives, and it's mixed in a sauce. It's like an appetizer. You put it on toast or bread. So I see these big cans. They're from Italy. Got them from Joe the Butcher. He puts them on there. And I said, what do you do? He says, Mark, do me a favor, help me. I'll open the cans. He's got Jimmy walks in with 10 loaves of Italian bread, and he's putting the campanata, he's mixing it with tuna fish. And I don't know if I told you this story, but I never had a dish. Everybody ate tuna fish. They used to put a little olive oil and maybe tomatoes or mayonnaise. He's mixing the tuna fish with the campanata and putting it in the semolina bread. And I'm telling you, guys are lining up for it. I never had it. But I tell you right now, I'm 64. I think I'm 64. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm 64. I still eat it. That's how I eat my tuna fish. You're talking about an impact of something you never experienced. So understand this. No matter just me, I know a lot of guys there, they were impacted by this whole camaraderie that these guys had. And they never asked questions about anything. Like they asked for money. They asked for, I want to go to a restaurant. You know the owner of the restaurant? Like Johnny. Johnny used to dress well. So did Jeannie. So did a lot of guys did. And they dressed well. A lot of the suits they bought. I'll tell you the places he used to go to. Richfield's and Kings Plaza. This is before going to Delisi's, going for Brioni's. Richfield's and Kings Plaza. You go to Fields Brothers. They were on Queens Boulevard. Another thing, custom tailor guy. And of course, there was Delisi's, and Brioni suits. This was a fanatical way to make suits, and these guys wanted to dress the best. But you'd also see, there's pictures of John with the Raider jacket on, sweatsuit, Gene or Pete, same thing. And a sweatsuit was a part of way of dressing down without, you never see them in jeans and sneakers and a t-shirt. That wasn't happening. Maybe in the 60s, they dressed like that when they were poor, didn't have money. But as they got older and more accomplished and, more within themselves, they dress expanded. I guess you guys would too. I did, but another thing I want to tell you, I have another guest on the show coming on. A friend of mine named Tony. Now, I'm going to tell you something a little about him. He's 94 years old. He was away with John, loved John. I mean, tell stories. He loved Frankie, Chico was born up. He knew them all. He was away with them, mostly in the 70s. He was in prison with him, interacted with him, and he was a butcher and a cook. And he had his own business, but a sweetheart. You got to understand something. I'm going to surround you with guys that everybody likes. They don't have negatives against them. I don't want to boast about myself, Kevin, and Tony, 94-year-old guy. Everybody loves Tony. Tony's a good guy. He wants to talk about his old friends that back then that he knew, interactions in a respectful way. He said, I want to tell you more stories about you. The man was special to be around. This guy was special to be around. And a lot of guys from that club were. It was a different kind of, I think it was I would call a Bergin Hunter Fish Club the underdog club. All the underdogs went there. No royalty or nothing. But like I said, this is only about that. I want to keep it focused in that time frame from the 80s to early 90s. I got some of the stories you're going to hear about fights, guys getting strangers or somebody hurting somebody. I'm going to have stories about guys, smacking a guy who smacked somebody's kid, woman, or a neighbor. If I could tell you, there was one time a neighbor had a problem. A tenant, an old lady and a daughter. Husband died. She didn't have much money. The landlord, a couple blocks away, was driving him crazy. Had nowhere to go. She had no family. And she owed him a couple months' rent. And she used to come by the club and knock, please help me, please. I said, what do you need? She used to give her money. She said, can I talk to Mr. Gotti? I talked to Mr. Gotti. And she went. One day, came out there, said, sure, what's the matter? He says, this woman's going to throw me out. I have nowhere to go. She goes, I'm on my husband's VA pension. I'm trying to, I work in a deli, but I owed him. I got caught up with medical bills for back rent. And Johnny says, what's the rent? He says, I owe her. Now, this is back then in the 80s. So I owe him $1,700. He wants to throw me out. And Johnny's like, now here's a guy who bets $2,000 on a horse, or like Gene, hearts of gold. But, Pete, here's the money. Go meet this landlord. And he goes, he gives him the money. Here's a rent. I says, no, listen, don't be so fast to throw her out. She's a friend. She's a family member, the cousin. I said, sure, Pete, no problem. He says, just bear with her. She's a good woman. I said, I know, but I said, just bear with her. But that was the little simple things, they go unnoticed because they lived that life. It's a funny thing, if you needed money for something, if you were just taking money to gamble, you wouldn't get it. They weren't stupid. That's one thing. They were smart guys. But if it was an emergency or you needed something, I swear to God, you could count on John, Angelo, Jeannie, even Pete or somebody, Joey, just generous guys. I mean, Joey, my uncles and cousins worked as laborers in the union because they knew him from the neighborhood growing up, and he got them the jobs. Didn't want nothing from them. So like I said, so Joey Scopo, I respect the guy. Tough guy, but sweetheart. He used to come by the club almost every day, say hello, even come for an hour or two. Because these guys, they know each other since they were younger. But everything in that was evolved about making sure that you had a chance to earn even a job. You want a job, you ask them. You don't want a job, you want to be, like I could call, a street guy. Well, if you're not made up for it, you're not going to make it. You're going to suffer. But there's a lot entails. You want to be a gopher, you want to run errands. Everybody did. Started out from the bottom, worked their way up. If you got brains, you become a bookie, a number business. Maybe you want to borrow money and lend it out. There's no, you do have to show some balls. But that was that time, it wasn't, you saw violence, people getting smacked around or fights, but it was very limited to targeted violence because it was very controlled. But, mostly it was fights and arguments, guys robbing money, guys didn't pay a debt, and that wasn't John. That was other guys doing that, but, Johnny, Joey, and them, guess they gave guys millions of chances. And I'm telling you, millions of chances. And a lot of them guys, talking about betting, John was a degenerate gambler. So if he knows another degenerate gambler, he's going to have something in common with you. And you're going to know that. You're going to talk about horses, you're going to talk about sports, how much you lose. You got to stop that. If you were a gambler, you had conversation with him. You were a sports fan, you had conversation with him. And you were into food or knew how to cook a little bit, he had conversation with him. You want to know about mob life or that life or whatever life he was in, he didn't want to have a conversation with you. Let's keep it on a regular keel. But that's what I found special. It wasn't about go there, make money, do that, work, and leave. It was a build-up of, that's why he had, listen, he had 20, 30, 40 guys hanging around him. He could call 10 guys in 2 minutes to come get him. A lot of guys couldn't do that. And that was a testament to John. Now, you want to talk about other guys in other areas, other guys I respect in other areas. I'm not going to, I didn't spend time with them, so there's nothing for me to say with them. Do I know of them? Sure. But do I respect them? Absolutely. Did I get involved with them? No. But do they come by and visit John once in a while? Yeah. And you'll get them you'll get them days where I show they came to eat, or they came to, had a party. They came for the holidays like Easter or Christmas. But so that's why we keep it at that level in the 80s to early 90s. And I guarantee you, like this special, I'm going to surprise you guys. I want you all to tell your friends, try to subscribe, because the more subscribers I got and the more views I get, the easier for me is to put this special together and have you guys all logged in. I need your help there. We've been talking a while now. It's been a couple of months now, and I appreciate your responses, no matter what they are. Everybody has a right to say what they want to say. But I'm so busy taking care of my wife and now, getting the shows produced. I don't have time for the comments. I don't get discouraged. I see them. You know what I mean? I try to see them as much as I can. But know that you're coming along on this ride for me. If you believe in the truth, and I'm mentioning none of them guys, I'm talking about. If you know my podcast, they don't get mentioned here. This is about good people, true stories. I don't care. And, they ain't got to be dramatic. Just true stories, nuts and bolts, character, days, and events that went on in the club. I want you to be part of it. Driving, going places, with John to the track, waiting outside the track to go put a bet in. Or, I remember meeting Gene and Joey and them on Fridays. That was a pleasure. If they won, everybody got a little tip. I mean, it was just like that, Or, go to the diner across the street, get something to eat. They were in there, John, Gene, I got his tab. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of that, but he wanted you around. Wasn't like guys, what I call hit and run guys, come around, found two regulars, want to borrow money and disappear. If you were a loyalist, if you came around every day and whatever, I don't care if John asked you, do me a favor, take a ride to so-and-so or pick up something, drop it off at my house. My pleasure. Why not? It's my friend. Will you do that for your friend? It has nothing to do about who's more important than the other guy, or it's you respect him and never say, go do that. It's like, do me a favor. You want to do me a favor? And if somebody acts you like that, I don't care if it's your neighbor. If you could do it, you do it for them. So that was that life back then. I don't care to know what it is about now. I don't want to know. It has nothing to do with it. But, it's a story that I keep on telling you. You want to hear it. I got a lot of stories. I'm just trying to get this put together so you could really get laid out. So I'm going to have Kevin back with Tony. You're going to love Tony. I might have another guy back. You're going to love all well-liked, smart guys who admire John. Their famous word, like I said, the guy was an icon. He was different. You know how guys talk about, guys who are different icon? Well, you see them out there in the public life, private life. They make a difference, an impact. I'm telling you, you could talk about all the guys from the 50s and 60s all you want. They don't have impact. Go back to Al Capone in Chicago or John in New York. An everlasting impact. And it's funny, true, some kind of edgy. You'll see the edgy parts. I don't want to jump the gun here because I'm going to have my friends do it. We're going to have a conversation about it. I want to interact with the edgy parts because it's great with Kevin and Tony. Tony might be on Zoom. He's 94, but you're going to love him. You're going to make you laugh too. And we're going to have that conversation. Another story I want to talk about. We used to go to Villa Russo's to eat a lot. And it was Joey Russo and Frankie Russo, two brothers that owned the place. Nice guys, real nice guys. Joey was a gem. Joey was real close to Frank Sinatra. Real close to Frank Sinatra. I mean, they were friends. He'd go by Frank's house. Frank would come in. He'd make Frank an Italian cheesecake and take it to him when Frank stayed in like the Waldorf Astoria. They were real close. So we found out they were real close. So one day I go by Villa Russo's, me and a kid Jerry. And kid Jerry used to hang around the club too. And, he's a degenerate horse player. I mean, night and day. Didn't stop. But that doesn't matter. But so John, we go to eat. Let's go by Joey Russo. And we sit by Joey's and he bring out a big tray of fried calamari, and maybe some shrimp. We kind of sit down and eat with him. And talk. He says, and we asked him, Joe, we know you like Frank Sinatra. He says, Frank Sinatra's my buddy. He's my friend. He says, you ever come here? He says, yeah, he came here. And this is Villa Russo's on Lefferts Boulevard on 101st Avenue. He says, he's coming in concert in the Golden Nugget. He says, yeah, next week. He says, you think you can get us tickets? He says, you want to go see Frank? Really? He says, yeah, we love him. He says, okay, you can go see Frank Sinatra. He says, go tell John I'm going to send you to go see Frank Sinatra. So he says, we told John, it's John. He said, we went by Joey's. Frank Sinatra's coming to Golden Nugget. We asked him for two tickets. I'll get you the 2 tickets. He got me tickets through Frank for my mother and everybody. They sit with each other. But go, sure, why not? He's a good guy, Joe. He says, Frank's great show. We go back there. Joey says, listen, go down to the Golden Nugget, Atlantic City. This is the old Golden Nugget where Steve Wynn owned it. We go down. He says, go to the front desk. You ask the guy. He says, tell him you're Joey's friends. Tell him Mark or Jerry want to go see Frank Sinatra. He says, and tell him, and listen, and go there and tell him this. And when Frank's there, you meet him, tell him this. He knows where you're from. I'll be there the night before. I'll tell him you're John's friends from 101st Avenue. All of a sudden, we get there. We go to eat. We eat Chinese food. We dress in suit and tie. We drive down. We go to the box office. The guy sitting at Tux. He says, you got 2 tickets for Mark and Jerry? He's looking down a list. He says, I don't see nothing, Mark and Jerry. You sure? Joey Russo sent us 2 tickets. Just Joey Russo. He goes, yeah, little Joe. You're the 2 guys from Ozone Park. You're John's friends. Marie calls the hostess over. Take Mark and Jerry to Mr. Sinatra's table. He looks at me, Mr. Sinatra's table. We walk all the way down, past all the people we knew, to the front table at the stage. At the table is Barbara Sinatra, Frank Jr., their lawyers and friends, and if Joey's had 2 seats with them, I sat right next to Barbara Sinatra. She turns around, beautiful blonde woman, says, hi, you must be Joey's friends from Ozone Park, Johnny's friends. How you doing? Enjoy the show. Come backstage afterwards. So we order something. We don't want to drink alcohol. We order 2 bottles of, Perrier water, whatever, I give the guy, so the guy says $20. So I give the guy a $20 tip. I'm sitting with Sinatra's wife. And Jerry says, what are you giving him a $20 tip for? I said, shut your mouth. I'm not going to embarrass John here. You know what I mean? So concert's great. He toasts us, saw the show, got invited backstage, all that. So that's the power of, but Sinatra was a good guy, but Joey was a sweetheart. And Johnny loved that he sent us. And he told Sinatra, he sent it to guys. Sinatra knew it, to my friends from Ozone Park, all that, So this is that little simple things that I want to tell you about. So meeting Sinatra was, I told you about the time I met Sinatra in the Meadowlands with John. This is the beginning of it. So this is a microcosm of John's personality. And, and this is before Johnny became news famous. So imagine his personality and charisma back then. Until the news made him famous, he was well-liked and admired by a lot of people. You guys out there, you know it. You only see what I call the idiots talk about. Man, they can't talk about what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about just character and the personality and the fun. But in that, you're going to see all the other little things mixed in that make a person who he is. You're going to see some acts of, fearlessness from different people. It comes out, but we're going to do it in a circle with a couple of guys. You're going to be involved on it. So I want you to really get into on these stories. But remember one thing, when you do gamble, Johnny always says, don't lose what you can't. And if you do lose what you can't, try not to do it again. You get one shot at losing what you can't. But if you're going to gamble, gamble what you can control, So that's me. That's a story. Please subscribe. I wanted to do this podcast for you without Kevin because I want to keep a lot of conversation going with my people out there. And because I got my Patreon site, it helps. Whatever you could do, but just be prepared for this special. I'm telling you, you're going to be part of it in more ways than you know. So thank you, guys. God bless you. Have a good weekend. And thank you for all the best wishes to my wife. I really appreciate it. Thank you. How long was that?
That was 28 minutes.
28? That's good.
Another knot. You want to do some social stuff?
Yeah, I want to do a 5-minute short about a bookmaking event. That's all I thought this is.
Whenever you're ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
This is hi, Big Mark here. The secrets behind the red doors. I want to tell you this little story, a little short story about John. You're gonna love this story. So Johnny had a guy, one of the bookies he used to bet with was a guy, Dominic, little guy, maybe if he was 5'6", he was 5'5", So one day, Johnny's out of the summertime or springtime. We're outside the club. Johnny's in his doorway standing there, and he's talking to us. And all of a sudden, this brand new Fleetwood pulls up, Cadillac, big Cadillacs from the 80s. Brand new, pulls up, sits down. He goes, Dom gets out. He goes, nice car, Dom. Just get it? So, yeah, I just got it yesterday, brand new. So I just pulled the sticker off. So Johnny comes, come here, he says. He walks over. He says, can I have the keys? He says, what do you want? He goes, since I paid for the car, I should be able to drive it, shouldn't I? So Dominic goes, what do you mean you paid for the car? He says, I lost $40K with you last week. That's what that car cost. So basically, I bought you a new car. So I should have a spare set of keys. So Dom has this look at him, and he don't know what to say. And he's looking at us. We're looking at him like, says, John, you want a spare set of keys? I'll give it to you. But you got your Mercedes. What do you want? He says, his boy. Some of these guys, they want to give it up. It was a free gift. But that was Johnny's sense of humor. He lost $40,000 one week with a bookie. The bookie went and bought a brand new Cadillac. Johnny wanted his set of keys so he could use it since he figured he paid for it. But that's Johnny's taking lost in his gambling into a sense of humor and screwing with a guy's head. So that's a little slip. A little snip I wanted to show you about. That's one thing. Guys don't talk about stories like that. There's more coming. Stay tuned, my friends.